Human rights activists and cholera victims in Haiti protested in front of the UN stabilization mission in Port-au-Prince, demanding the UN uphold its promises. The protest comes as the UN Security Council began a visit to assess the country 3 months before ending its 13-year peacekeeping mission there. The delegation will meet with the president as well as representatives of the civil society, the country's private sector and the diplomatic corps during the 2-day trip. However, the visit comes as the UN Aid Fund for Haiti's cholera victims is struggling, as only about $2.7 million of the $400 million needed to fund the relief have been raised. An outbreak of cholera in 2010 was introduced by Nepalese UN peacekeepers serving in the mission. More than 9,000 Haitians died as a result of the epidemic. Police in Britain say the Grenfell Tower fire in London started with a fridge freezer and the outside cladding failed safety tests. Insulation on the building is also reported to have failed tests, and the Metropolitan Police will consider manslaughter charges. 79 people so far are feared dead after the blaze destroyed 151 homes in the Kensington Tower block. The government has ordered immediate testing of the Hotpoint fridge freezer which was involved. Whirlpool, the company which owns Hotpoint, has said it is working with the authorities to obtain access to the appliance so that it could assist with the ongoing investigations. Some 250 specialist investigators have been deployed to find out what happened. Police have said the fire had not been started deliberately. And 11 high-rise buildings with cladding similar to that on Grenfell Tower have so far been identified, but there are an estimated 600 buildings that will need to be inspected. The findings suggest hundreds of residents could be at risk. On Thursday, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn called on the government to make sure the resources to carry out the inspections were made available as soon as possible.
There is obviously a huge cost involved in removing and recladding blocks that are found to have flammable materials included in them. That resources, that money must be made available immediately because it is a huge job of work. And when the Prime Minister says that those people who are in danger must be moved out of their properties, this is a massive undertaking and a huge focus of government resources will have to go into it. Fire safety measures cannot be left to a postcode lottery. So I ask the government to make available emergency funds, as my honourable friend, the member for Leeds West, raised yesterday, so that councils can carry out immediate fire safety checks and install sprinklers, and the timetable for that be made known to residents.
A man has been charged with terrorism-related murder and attempted murder after a van was driven into worshippers outside a mosque in North London. 47-year-old Darren Osborne from Cardiff was arrested after the incident in Finsbury Park in the early hours of Monday morning. People were leaving prayers when the attack happened, killing one and leaving 9 others in hospital. A spokesman from the Crown Prosecution Service said it had authorised the Metropolitan Police to charge him. Mr Osborne later appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court. Efforts to reassure EU citizens in the UK about their future after Brexit are first steps but not sufficient. That's what a top EU official has said as the second day of an EU summit in Brussels held today. Theresa May on Thursday promised that EU citizens living in the UK for 5 years could stay and would get settled status with access to health and other benefits after Brexit. But European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker said more was needed. Britons living in the EU are also worried about what it will mean in terms of a reciprocal deal.
This is a fair and serious offer. It gives those 3 million EU citizens in the UK certainty about the future of their lives, and we want the same certainty for the more than 1 million UK citizens who are living in the European Union. On Monday, I will publish my proposals in full and look forward to reaching an agreement at the earliest possible date.
The UK's first memorial to the African and Caribbean soldiers of the First and Second World Wars has been unveiled in London. The installation is the vision of the Nubian Jack Community Trust, honouring the estimated 2 million Afro-Caribbean soldiers who fought in both wars.
Many of you might not know it, but today for the African and Caribbean community, the 22nd of June is Windrush Day. In 1948, the first important group of post-war immigrants from the West Indies was brought in the UK on the MV Empire Windrush boat upon the request of the British government. Their purpose, to help rebuild a country after the World War II. Today isn't just any day. This is the day chosen for the United Kingdom to unveil its first war memorial dedicated to honouring the lives of African and Caribbean servicemen and women who served during World War I and World War II. This project has been 7 years in the making and was originally conceived by Nubian Jack Community Trust to address historical omissions. The monument is installed on Windrush Square in Brixton, southwest London. Amongst those who attended the ceremony were members of Parliament, veterans and members of the general public.
It's been a long time. It's all about the soldiers. A lot of soldiers have died and have not been recognised. So it's really good that we've now done a monument that's going to be here forever. So when they're old, they can take their children here and remember that we did something very special.
The freedoms we all hold dear, the very freedoms that allow us to be open and inclusive, were hard won by people from different races, nationalities, religions and backgrounds. And this includes courageous African and Caribbean men and women who fought with the British Army during the First and Second World War. And we are finally starting to hear the stories.
You know, this is the acknowledgement of all of those who served, fought and died for freedom during both World War I and World War II, who up until now have not had a place to go and really remember their dead.
Well, it should have been done earlier, let's be honest about that. This is belated recognition, but let's welcome it for all that.
It's a commemoration and a recognition of the fact, the historical fact, that Africans from Africa and the Caribbean fought and died, sacrificed life and limb in the wars, the European wars, otherwise known as World Wars I and II, and have never been recognized for their sacrifices.
Today is so symbolic because, for me, it ends a 60-year period of hurt from when I was approached by adults as a youngster and told, well, we didn't win the war for you people to come here and take our jobs and our homes. And as a child I felt very worthless. And today I feel very worthy because I know that no child in this country should any longer know or think that they know that only white people fought in the wars, but that people from the Commonwealth, Africa, Caribbean and elsewhere fought in the war and gave their lives for our freedoms, and that is something to be treasured.
We start to understand the full picture of black people being in Britain, and as you can imagine, with the racism, with the way that we are today, there's an actual reasoning behind it. We actually fought, so we deserve to be here, which you've heard today.
As a society, we must never forget the sacrifices they made. And it's vital, it is vital that we pass this on to future generations, connecting children with their history.
The important thing for today is, A, we've celebrated and commemorated the fact that there's been a piece in the jigsaw missing about everyone's contribution to the war efforts, the First World War and the Second. But more important, it enables us to now move forward and educate the next generation.
Being born here, our history is not shared as we feel it should be, so I figured we're not supposed to wait for somebody else to tell us our story, we need to tell our own story.
It's important to know your history so you can tell your children and you can tell anybody anything that they might not know about you. The first shot in World War I was fired by a black man, do you understand? There's been 2 black queens of England, did you know that? Yeah? You should be very proud. You come from a people that used to rule the world. This is what all of this is about. And I'm very proud. I wish I was you lot. I wish I could live my life like you lot. You've got the whole future, so you can do anything. So that's what it's all about.
Today was a historic day. Britain finally recognised the contribution that African and Caribbean servicemen and women made to the country.
Some sport now, and Usain Bolt is leaving some pretty fast footsteps to follow as he gets set to retire. But he couldn't have achieved the title of the world's fastest man if he hadn't attended one of Jamaica's world-renowned sprinting factories. Let's find out more in this special report.
Training starts at the crack of dawn in Kingston. An exhausting schedule, but necessary if you want to become an athletics champion. Megan has been training hard for the past 5 years, hoping to compete in her second Olympic Games in Tokyo in 2020.
I wasn't a per se star in high school. I didn't have really brilliant times to carry me. So I looked at places where coaches have taken athletes that aren't brilliant people to brilliance. Look at Bolt. People told him he was too tall to run the 100, but he defied the odds. He didn't listen, and that's what you should do, because the sky's the limit. I mean, not even the sky, the stars.
Megan trains at one of Jamaica's 2 elite track clubs with coach and MVP co-founder Stephen Francis. The club's athletes have won over 80 medals at the Olympics and the World Championships.
The youngsters used to almost exclusively leave the country, go overseas for their education, rely on persons who are not particularly interested in the development of Jamaica.
Jamaica, a Caribbean island of less than 3 million people, is one of the top nations for athletics, producing stars like the world's fastest man, Usain Bolt. To reduce the talent drain to universities in the US, Britain and Canada, UTech University decided 40 years ago to imitate their sports programs and take a more scientific approach to sprinting.
If you do this, right, it's rigid, but if you do this, you can move significantly faster. The high knee action is simply lift your knee as high as you can, extend your foreleg, and so you get the highest possible strides.
With the right infrastructure in place and high-profile successes inspiring a new generation of athletes, Jamaica looks set to continue their global dominance in track and field.
Well, that's all from the Evening News team and I tonight. We'll be back on Monday. Have a lovely weekend. Goodbye for now.